Have you ever sat silently on a quiet afternoon, only to suddenly wonder if human life is ultimately long or short? We often think a life can span 50, 70, or even 100 years. But when we look back, all the memories, all the joys and sorrows seem to neatly flash by in the blink of an eye. Some spend their entire lives lost in calculations and struggles, striving to achieve so much. Then, only when their hair turns gray, do they suddenly realize that life has passed more quickly than they imagined. Others may not even live half a lifetime, but leave behind memories and love in the hearts of others, like a lamp that shines forever. So, whether life is long or short isn't truly measured by the number of years and months, but by how we live each day. The Buddha taught that life is inherently impermanent, fragile like a dewdrop clinging to a blade of grass. When the sun first rises, that dewdrop sparkles and shimmers beautifully. Yet, in just a brief moment, the sun's warmth makes it vanish without a trace. The human condition is similar. A few decades, compared to countless eons, is but a fleeting breeze. But because we cling to this temporary body, we continually suffer, feel sorrow, and mistakenly believe we can hold on to it forever. Ken Fat Phap Lin Ong, Spiritual Buddhist Channel, once met an elderly woman over 80 sitting in front of her house, watching her young grandchildren play. Her eyes sparkled with joy, but her voice dropped. She said, "It feels like only yesterday I was holding my children in my arms. And now my children have gray hair, and my grandchildren are grown. Time flies like a dream, with no chance to hold on to it." Listening to her, I suddenly thought, aren't all of us walking that same path? We keep thinking we have plenty of time to love, to apologize, to live fully. But by the time we realize that human life is finite, it might already be too late. Therefore, what's important is not how many years we live, but whether we truly live each moment. To live in mindfulness, in awakening, in gratitude, then even a single day is complete and meaningful. But if we let months and years pass in suffering, in anger, in unfulfilled desires, then even 100 years is just a wasted life. The Buddha's teachings are not meant to make us pessimistic, but to awaken us. He reminds us that when we know life is short, we will cherish every breath, every glance, every smile. We will stop wasting our minds on unnecessary things. Instead of blaming, we choose to forgive. Instead of anger, we choose love. Instead of complaining, we choose gratitude. Because every passing moment will never return, and only awakening can help us live a life without regret. Do you realize that right now you are still breathing? Still have the opportunity to listen, to love, to change? So ask yourself, do you want to live a long life in terms of years, or a short life that is full of meaning? Because the answer lies in how you live today. Have you ever sat one early morning before the sun had fully risen to admire the sparkling dewdrops on young leaves? They shimmer like jewels, so beautiful that we might imagine holding on to that moment forever. Yet, just a moment later, as the sun begins to rise and its warmth spreads through the air, the dewdrops vanish so quickly that before we can even blink, they are gone. That image is simple, yet it is a vivid testament to a truth the Buddha taught. All phenomena are impermanent. Nothing in this world lasts forever. The Buddhist teaching of impermanence is not a distant philosophy. It is present in every moment of our lives. People, objects, circumstances, everything is constantly in a state of flux. What we have today may be gone tomorrow. The person beside us today may be far away tomorrow. Even our own bodies, every cell, every breath, are continuously arising and perishing in every instant, without us even knowing it. If we look deeply, we will see that nothing is fixed. Yet, because we often delude ourselves into thinking we can hold on to things forever, when change comes, we are surprised, suffer, and complain. There was an old woman named Tu in a small countryside village, living in an old tud-roof house surrounded by a lush green garden. Every morning, she would wake up very early, carrying a bucket of well water to irrigate her vegetable beds and flower bushes. She said her joy was watching the plants grow each day, seeing the flowers bloom each season. And what delighted her most were the sparkling dewdrops still clinging to the leaves every early morning. She would often sit for a long time gazing at them, sometimes even calling her grandchildren over to show them their pristine beauty. One day, as she put her water bucket down, she suddenly noticed the dewdrops disappearing very quickly as the sun rose. She sat silently, watching the leaves dry. After the water evaporated, a strange feeling welled up in her heart. She said, "It turns out human life is also like those dewdrops, existing, sparkling, then vanishing when its time is up." From that day on, she lived more freely, complained less, got angry less often. Every day, she reminded her children and grandchildren not to wait until things are gone to appreciate them, but to cherish every moment that is still present. Ms. Tu's story sounds simple, but perfectly reflects the spirit of impermanence in the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha once said, "All phenomena arise from the harmonious coming together of causes and conditions. When these causes and conditions dissolve, the phenomena also cease. Our bodies, our relationships, our careers, all are within that circle. They come when conditions are met, and will go when their time is up." If we cling to the idea of permanence, we will suffer when we see change. But if we accept the truth of impermanence, we will know to cherish every remaining breath and look at life with eyes of gratitude. Many people think that understanding impermanence is pessimistic, that if everything will be lost, then what's the point of living? But in reality, understanding impermanence does not make us despair. On the contrary, it gives us a stronger source of life. Because when we know that today we exist, but tomorrow is not certain, we will not waste time on hatred or blame. We will choose love, choose compassion, choose forgiveness. Because we understand that all anger will also vanish like a dewdrop. We will not let petty things hurt our minds, because life is inherently short. Why should we waste it on useless suffering? You can start practicing living in the spirit of impermanence with very simple things. Every morning when you wake up, take a minute to sit quietly, feel your breath, and smile because you are alive and still have the opportunity to love. When you see loved ones in front of you, remember that you don't know if you'll see them tomorrow. So say a kind word, make a loving gesture, instead of ignoring or getting angry. When facing difficulties, remind yourself that this difficulty is also impermanent. It too will pass, like clouds drifting or rain stopping. It is this contemplation that will give us the strength to be more composed in the face of all changes in life. And then, every time you sit quietly and look at a dewdrop on a leaf, let it remind you of the fragility of human life. Don't let impermanence scare you. Instead, let it teach you to appreciate. Don't just look at loss, look at the beauty that is present. For every dewdrop, even if it vanishes quickly, once shone brightly under the morning sun. Every moment of our lives is the same. Even though it will pass, if we live it fully, it will leave a beautiful imprint on our souls. My dear friend, impermanence is not a warning to make us sad, but an awakening to make us live more mindfully, more gently, and more peacefully. To recognize impermanence is to recognize the true value of life. Human life is short, but if we know how to cherish every moment, to live with a compassionate heart and wisdom, then that life is not wasted at all. Have you ever sat quietly watching a sunrise, looking at the clear dewdrops still clinging to the grass, only to have them vanish so quickly when the morning sun touches them, making it seem as if they never existed? This is not just an ordinary natural scene, but contains a profound lesson that the Buddha taught over 2,000 years ago. All phenomena in the world are impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. The most beautiful things will fade. The most stable things will change. And even our own lives are as fragile as that dewdrop. The Buddhist teaching of impermanence sounds simple at first, but in fact, it is an important foundation for people to live peacefully amidst the ever-changing flow of life. Impermanence means that all phenomena change in every instant. Nothing can remain in the same state forever. A seed sprouts today, grows into a tree tomorrow, then flowers, bears fruit, and finally withers and decomposes. Humans are born, grow old, and pass away. Even towering mountains and long rivers, seemingly eternal, gradually erode over time. If we look deeply, we will see that there is not a single moment when things stop changing. Yet, because we always want everything to remain as we wish, when change occurs, we suffer, complain, and even despair. There was an old woman named Tu, living in a peaceful rural area. Her small house nestled beside a row of bamboo. In front of the yard was a garden full of green vegetables and flowers. Every morning, she would wake up very early, carrying a bucket of water to water each plant. She said that was the greatest joy of her old age, because just seeing the plants sprout and flowers bloom, her heart felt peaceful. But what she liked most was watching the dewdrops still clinging to the leaves after a long night. Those dewdrops sparkled like crystal, reflecting the morning light, making her garden magical. One morning, she sat on the steps, looking at the garden and sipping hot tea. She saw the dewdrops disappear very quickly under the early sun. She suddenly sighed and said to her children and grandchildren, "Human life is just like that. Just yesterday, we were young and healthy, but now our hair is gray, our teeth have fallen out. We thought it would last a long time, but it turns out to be just a fleeting moment, like those dewdrops. So you must appreciate every day you live. Don't waste it in anger and blame." Her words sounded rustic, but encapsulated the entire spirit of impermanence. Her grandchildren also changed little by little from then on, learning to love each other more, appreciating every family meal, every evening spent together. This simple story reminded the spiritual Buddhist channel of the Buddha's teaching in the Dhammapada. All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one is released from suffering. Impermanence is not meant to make us shy, but to awaken us, to live more meaningfully. In modern life, we often complain that time flies too fast. It feels like only yesterday we were going to school, and now our hair is gray. It feels like only yesterday we held our parents' hands, and now our parents may be gone. This truth is not meant to make us grieve, but to remind us that every passing moment is precious. If we are constantly preoccupied with work, money, and fame, forgetting the present, then at some point, looking back, we will realize we have missed an entire life. A father is always busy with work, having no time to play with his children. When his children grow up, the father regrets the distance that has grown too great. A mother is always worried, complaining about her husband and children, only to realize in old age that happy years have passed and will not return. All are manifestations of impermanence, and only when we realize this can we learn to live differently. A Zen master once told that when he was young, his father often took him to the fields. Every morning, he saw the sun rise, the dew disappear, heard the rooster crow. Everything was new. His father said, "Do you see? Everything changes. The tree today is not the tree of yesterday. The person today is not the person of yesterday. Therefore, cherish each day. Live kindly each day, so that when impermanence comes, you will have no regrets." That teaching stayed with him throughout his life and was what he passed on to his disciples. When we understand impermanence, we will no longer cling to what is called the self. We will be less greedy, less contentious, less competitive, because we know that everything is temporary. An anger today may be gone tomorrow. A sadness today may have vanished a month later. So why do we let our minds be defiltered by these emotions and lose the peace in the present? A person who understands impermanence will know how to let go, how to forgive, and how to live with love. That person will choose gentle words instead of harsh ones, for they know that once words are spoken, they can never be taken back. That person will choose kind actions instead of selfish ones, for they know that the good deeds of today will be their provision for tomorrow. Practicing contemplation of impermanence can start with very small things. Every time you look in the mirror, smile at yourself and realize that you are aging day by day. And that is the natural law. Don't be afraid. Instead, be grateful that you are still alive. When you see a flower bloom, take a moment to admire it, for tomorrow it will wither. When you see a loved one smile, remember that moment, for no one knows what tomorrow will bring. Instead of being too busy to eat together, spend a warm meal with your family. Instead of letting anger overshadow you, hold your loved ones close and offer a word of forgiveness. These seemingly small things are precisely how we live fully amidst impermanence. Many ask how to keep the mind at peace when facing loss. The answer is mindfulness. When we practice meditation, sitting still, breathing slowly, we will realize that even each breath is impermanent. Inhale, exhale, Each moment does not repeat. If we are aware of our breath, we will truly feel alive, not caught up in the past or worrying about the future. When a loved one passes away, instead of despairing, we remember that it is the law of impermanence. Instead of clinging to the old image in sorrow, we are grateful for the beautiful memories we shared. When a job fails, instead of being sad, we see it as an opportunity to start over. Everything lies in the perception of impermanence. Think about it. If one day you knew for sure that you wouldn't be alive tomorrow, how would you live today? Perhaps you wouldn't waste time on anger or comparison. Perhaps you would choose to hug your loved ones, say words of love, do something meaningful. But the truth is, none of us knows for sure if we will be here tomorrow. Therefore, treat each day as your last to live fully and completely. That is not pessimism, but a way to cherish life. Watching dew dissolve, we learn to smile at fragility. Watching flowers bloom and fade, we learn to cherish beauty in the moment. Watching our hair turn gray, we learn to accept old age with a peaceful heart. That is living in the spirit of impermanence. And when we truly understand that, we will feel lighter, happier, and freer. My dear friend, impermanence is not an enemy that causes us anxiety, but a teacher that teaches us how to live. Impermanence does not take away happiness, but reminds us to create happiness in the present. Impermanence does not make us lose, but shows us the value of what we still have. If we understand impermanence, we will know how to live each day as a precious gift. And when the last moment comes, we will also smile because we know we have lived a life without regrets. Have you ever wondered why there are times when life doesn't change? Circumstances remain the same, yet our mood strangely shifts into different emotional states. Sometimes, just a sudden rain shower can, for one person, be as beautiful as a gentle song, while for another, it's an unexpected disaster that fills their heart with frustration. The same event occurs, but the feelings are completely opposite. This makes us stop and ask ourselves, is it possible that suffering or peace does not lie in the external world, but originates from each person's own mind? The Buddha once taught that suffering does not come from external circumstances. It arises from the way we react, from how we perceive and cling to things. If we embrace resistance, embrace anger, then suffering grows. If we know how to smile, how to let go gently, then even in difficult circumstances, we can still find peace. The teaching about suffering in the Four Noble Truths, which the Buddha expounded, is the foundation for us to deeply understand this. He did not deny the existence of suffering. He affirmed that in life, suffering is something everyone must face, from birth, aging, sickness, and death, to losses, separations, and unsatisfying situations. But the most important thing is that this suffering is not solely caused by external circumstances, but largely arises from attachment itself, from a mind that does not know how to let go, from how we react to every event. It's like an arrow hitting the body, causing the first pain. But if we keep complaining, resenting, and tormenting ourselves, it's like letting many more arrows pierce our soul. External circumstances only cause the initial pain. The subsequent pains are self-created. imagine a sudden afternoon rain. Rain is neither happy nor sad. Rain is just rain. But when our mind confronts it, rain can become a source of peace or a source of distress. Mr. Nam was on his way home from work when he suddenly encountered a heavy downpour, soaking his clothes. Traffic was jammed, and the streets were flooded. He frowned and complained, blaming the heavens for being unfair, his heart full of discomfort. For him, rain was torture. Meanwhile, during the same rain, Ms. Hoa sat in a small roadside cafe, quietly watching each raindrop fall on the tiled roof, feeling the refreshing coolness permeate the air. For her, the rain was a moment to slow down, to see that life also has its gentle moments, like the sound of falling rain. The same scene, but different mindsets, different experiences. This is vivid proof that suffering does not come from external circumstances, but arises from our own minds. Mr. Nam's story is not uncommon. In daily life, we often find ourselves in such situations. A careless word from someone can make us angry all day. A delayed plan can make us incredibly annoyed. But if we change our perspective, we can see that everything has a reason. An insensitive remark from someone may not have been intended to hurt us, but perhaps they were simply tired. A delayed ride is not necessarily a disaster. Sometimes it helps us avoid a risk on the road. When we change our perspective, we will feel lighter, and suffering will naturally disappear. The Buddha once told a story about a wealthy merchant who, in a single night, experienced an event that caused him to lose all his fortune. Initially, he was in pain, angry, resentful, blaming heaven and people, hating those who had deceived him. The initial pain of loss was already great, but the resentment in his heart multiplied it. It was only when he sought out a Zen master who reminded him that money is just an external possession, that if lost, it can be remade. But holding on to resentment only causes oneself suffering. That he awakened. He began to gradually let go, learning to see loss as an opportunity to start anew. And indeed, when his mind was no longer burdened by resentment, he began to find peace, even though life was still difficult. From then on, he rebuilt his career with a lighter mindset. And ultimately, he not only recovered his wealth, but also gained a more peaceful soul than before. Such stories teach us one thing: external circumstances cannot fully determine our lives. Some people live in poverty, but their hearts are always joyful because they are content and appreciate what they have. Some people live in wealth, but suffer day and night because their greed never stops, because their envy never ceases. Thus, wealth or poverty, happiness or suffering, does not lie solely in circumstances, but more importantly, in how we confront and embrace life. One of the practices the Buddha taught to overcome suffering is mindfulness. When we are truly awake, we become aware of the emotions arising within us. We clearly see annoyance, anger, and resentment as soon as they begin to stir. And with that awareness, we do not let them overwhelm our souls. Instead of reacting unconsciously, we stop, take a deep breath, and look at things with a different perspective. Then, suffering will no longer have a place to take root. Practicing mindfulness in every moment, daily life, is the key to transforming suffering from within the mind. Just think, if every day we take a few minutes to sit still, close our eyes, feel our breath going in and out. Simply like that, we will feel our minds calm down. Worries and anxieties, like thin layers of clouds, gradually dissipate, revealing the clear blue sky within. This stillness helps us realize that everything is merely conditioned, coming and going. Nothing lasts forever. And when we understand this, we will no longer cling too tightly, no longer resist fiercely. And from there, suffering will also gradually diminish. In life, let's learn to look at everything with gratitude. When rain comes, instead of complaining, we can be grateful because the rain irrigates the fields and plants. If someone says words that hurt us, instead of resenting, we can see it as an opportunity to practice letting go, to cultivate patience. If a loss occurs, instead of lingering in pain, we can see it as a valuable lesson to grow. When we change our perspective, suffering transforms into a lesson, and we grow in peace. Ultimately, what we need to remember is that suffering is not an enemy. Suffering is simply a teacher that comes to teach us lessons about impermanence, about letting go, about contentment. If we run away from suffering, we will become even more afraid. If we embrace suffering to observe and transform it, we will find peace right in the midst of that suffering. Therefore, the Buddha's teaching that suffering arises from our own mind is not to make us blame ourselves, but to remind us that we have the power to master our minds, the power to choose how to react, the power to choose between suffering or peace. So when life has sudden storms, remember that rain is just rain, and peace or suffering all are determined by our own minds. When we learn to look at everything with an awakened mind, with an open heart, we will see that suffering can also transform into peace. And from then on, we will truly understand that human life, though short, does not necessarily have to be lived in suffering, but can completely be lived in peace through the transformation from within our own minds. Why do we sometimes feel so weighed down that we can't breathe, even when no one is holding us back? Sometimes we live in a fully equipped house, have a stable job, and carefully preserve cherished mementos, yet our hearts are not at peace. We fear loss, fear change, fear that one day what we have will slip from our grasp. This invisible clinging is like a chain binding us, robbing our souls of freedom. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is attachment, and the path to peace is letting go. But letting go does not mean loss. Letting go is not giving up everything, but knowing how to put down unnecessary burdens to rediscover lightness and freedom in the mind. In the teachings of the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha clearly identified the cause of suffering as craving and attachment. When we cling too strongly to something, we fear losing it, we worry about it, and we suffer when it changes. But the nature of life is impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, so that clinging only adds to our suffering. Letting go does not mean we deny or hate what we have, but that we learn to live with them lightly, not holding on too tightly, not letting them control our minds. It's like a hand clenching a handful of sand. The tighter you clench, the more sand slips through your fingers. But if you open your palm, the sand remains still. and you don't exhaust yourself trying to hold it. Letting go is opening your palm to let life flow more naturally, more lightly. There's a very familiar image in everyday life that anyone can relate to. Imagine you're carrying a very heavy backpack on your shoulders. At first, you think you need to bring everything, just in case. But the further you go, the more your shoulders ache, your steps become heavier, and you no longer feel joy on your journey. When you stop, open your backpack, and remove unnecessary items, you feel lighter, and your steps become more relaxed. Life is the same. If we constantly cling to expectations, material possessions, memories, and relationships without knowing how to put them down, we will be as tired as someone carrying an overly heavy backpack. Only when we bravely let go of some things do we find the journey of life much lighter. There was a woman named Mrs. Lan living in a small town. She became a widow when she was young. All her life, she raised her children through a small business. Among the few mementos her husband left behind was an antique ceramic vase that he had cherished. For her, the vase was not just an object, but also a symbol of her husband, a memory of a happy time. She guarded the vase meticulously, cleaning it daily, not allowing anyone to touch it, not daring to display it for fear of damage, nor daring to put it away for fear of losing it. She lived a lonely life in her small house, with her only comfort being to gaze at the vase. Yet, the tighter she held on, the lonelier she felt. Because instead of looking at reality, she constantly clung to the past, allowing her soul to be bound. One day, while attending a Dharma talk at a nearby temple, she heard a teaching that everything in the world is impermanent. Holding on to an object or a memory is not holding on to the person you love. Only when you know how to let go can you truly keep love in your heart. Mrs. Lan thought for a long time and finally decided to donate the antique vase to the temple. As she handed over the vase, she cried, but her tears were no longer heavy as before. They were tears of liberation. From that day on, she felt lighter, no longer haunted by the fear of loss. She began to open her heart more to neighbors, to her children and grandchildren, and gradually found new joy. During the chanting sessions, during the volunteer work, the vase was no longer with her, but she had gained freedom in her soul. Letting go, it turns out, is not losing, but opening a new door to freedom. Mrs. Lan's story makes us realize something. Often we think that holding on tightly is cherishing, but in reality, it is that very clinging that causes us suffering. True love is not found in a material object, not in clinging, but in keeping memories in our hearts and living a peaceful life. When we let go, we don't lose. Instead, we gain more: freedom, lightness, and the ability to live fully in the present. In Buddhist scriptures, there is an anecdote about a Zen master and his disciple crossing a river. They met a girl who couldn't swim, so the Zen master carried her across the river. When they reached the other side, the master put the girl down and continued on their way. But the disciple's mind was uneasy. He kept wondering, the master has violated the precept of physical contact with a woman. After a long walk, the disciple finally asked, and the Zen master just smiled. I put the girl down on the riverbank a long time ago. You, however, are still carrying her on your shoulders. This story shows us that it's not just tangible things that bind us, but mental notions, attachments, can be heavier than any material burden. Letting go, in its profound sense, is not only letting go of material things, but also letting go of mental attachments So, how should we practice letting go in our daily lives? First, start with small things. We can practice letting go of the need to win in arguments. When someone says something we don't like, instead of trying to argue them down, we can smile and let it be. By letting go of a little self-importance, we can maintain peace in our hearts. We can practice letting go of perfectionism. Sometimes we get tired because we want everything to go our way. But life is inherently beyond anyone's complete control. When we accept imperfection, we will find things easier. We can also practice letting go of unnecessary material possessions. An unused shirt, an item we don't need. We can give them away for others to benefit. When we give, we lose nothing. Instead, we gain the joy of seeing others happy. Another effective practice is meditation on impermanence. Every day, we can spend a few minutes sitting quietly, contemplating that everything around us changes. The green trees in the garden change leaves, our hair changes color, our bodies age day by day. When we clearly see this impermanence, we will no longer cling too tightly, and letting go will become natural. Contemplation not only helps us recognize the laws of life, but also helps us cultivate a compassionate mind. Because we know that everyone will grow old, get sick, and pass away, we cherish each other more in every moment. Letting go is also closely linked to forgiveness. When someone hurts us, we often hold on to resentment, thinking it protects us. But in reality, resentment only weighs us down. When we forgive, it's not because the other person deserves it, but because we deserve to be at peace. Forgiveness is a form of letting go. Letting go of resentment allows the soul to be light. Someone once said that letting go is letting go to keep, letting go to be free. When we let go of a material possession, we keep peace in our minds. When we let go of a grudge, we keep love. When we let go of an overly high expectation, we keep peace in the present. Letting go is not losing, but retaining the most precious spiritual values. Human life is short. If we constantly cling to and carry unnecessary burdens, precious time will pass in weariness. Only when we know how to let go can we truly be free to live every moment fully. Therefore, practice letting go little by little, starting with small things to feel lighter each day. And when we have learned to let go, we will realize that this life is inherently beautiful. A gentle breeze is enough to make us smile. A blooming flower is enough to make our hearts joyful. A simple meal with family is enough to make us grateful. Peace does not come from having a lot, but from letting go enough. When the heart is light, life will be peaceful. Have you ever wondered why some pains in our hearts linger so stubbornly? Sometimes they last for years, even a lifetime, refusing to fade away. Sometimes these aren't huge events, but just a word, a glance, a small action from someone that leaves a lasting mark on our hearts. We hold on to that mark like a debt, a pain, so that every time we recall it, our heart aches, as if we're holding a burning coal in our hand. The tighter we clench, the more we cling, the more we burn ourselves. Yet, we still hold on, believing that letting go would be like pardoning the person who hurt us. In fact, forgiveness is not a favor to anyone, but liberation for ourselves. First, the Buddha taught that hatred cannot eradicate hatred. Only love can eradicate hatred. That short statement contains a profound philosophy. When we hold hatred in our hearts, we are chaining ourselves with invisible bonds. The other person may have forgotten the hurtful words or actions. They may have moved on with their own lives, but we continue to torment ourselves with those memories. Therefore, forgiveness is the act of letting go of the burden so that our minds can be at peace. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting everything, nor does it mean accepting all wrongdoings, but rather stopping the self-torment, choosing not to pour more fuel onto the fire of suffering. You can imagine that when spring arrives, fresh green shoots emerge on the branches that were once stark in the cold. The harsh winter has passed, but if the tree keeps its dry leaves, refusing to shed them, how can new sprouts emerge? Similarly, if our minds cling to resentment, there will be no space for love and new joy to appear. Letting go and forgiveness are like clearing the soil of the soul so that the seeds of peace can flourish. I remember a simple story about Ms. Huang, a woman living in a small village along a river. She married young, and her marriage was originally peaceful. However, just once, in a moment of anger, her husband spoke harsh words that deeply wounded her heart. She remained silent, but from that day on, it was as if there was a cut in her heart, bleeding a little more each day. Her husband forgot about it after a few days, but she couldn't. The pain accumulated, and she held a grudge for many years. Every time she saw her husband, she remembered those words from years ago, as if the wound had just been rubbed with salt. Their marital affection gradually faded, the distance between them grew, and she lived in loneliness, even within her own home. Until one day, she had the opportunity to attend a Dharma talk at a nearby temple. The teacher spoke about forgiveness. He said, "Forgiveness is not giving the other person a chance, but giving yourself a chance to live in peace. If we do not forgive, we are like someone chaining themselves to the past. Forgiveness does not change what has happened, but it changes our own present and future." Those words resonated in her mind. And that night, she sat for a long time, thinking about the time that had passed, thinking about the pains she had prolonged herself. She realized that her husband was also just an ordinary person, capable of mistakes and thoughtless words. Holding on to that resentment only caused her more suffering. It didn't change the past. So, for the first time in many years, she chose to smile and quietly let go of the burden. And when she did that, she felt an amazing lightness in her heart, as if a long-held boulder pressing on her chest had suddenly fallen away. From that day on, she began to look at her husband with different eyes, not because he had completely changed, but because her own heart had changed. A smile returned to her lips, and family meals gradually became warmer. Neighbors who met her were surprised because she seemed to have become younger. It was forgiveness that opened a new door in her life. Perhaps you hear this story and find it simple. But in reality, in everyday life, there are so many people holding grudges like Miss Huang. Sometimes it's just an unintentional remark from a loved one, a small misunderstanding at work, an infidelity in a relationship. And then we hold on to that resentment in our hearts day after day, month after month, until we become prisoners of the past. The person who made the mistake may be sleeping peacefully, but we lie awake, tossing and turning. They may have forgotten, but we remember every detail. In essence, we turn pain into a chain that binds our hearts. The Buddha once used a very powerful image. Holding on to resentment is no different from holding a burning coal in your hand, waiting for a chance to throw it at someone else. But before you can throw it, your own hand will be burned. Similarly, forgiveness is not a gift you bestow on the other person, but an act of healing for yourself. When we forgive, we put down that burning coal so our hands are free and our souls are at peace. If you look back at life, you will see many things that are not as desired. Loved ones sometimes disappoint us. Friends sometimes betray us. Colleagues sometimes hurt us. But if we hold on to those wounds forever, our lives will be filled with darkness. Forgiveness does not mean we accept what is wrong, but we choose not to let the past dominate the present. We have the right to keep pain in our hearts, but we also have the right to live peacefully right now. Forgiveness is the wise choice to protect the peace of the soul. To practice forgiveness, we can start by looking deeply within ourselves. When remembering someone who has hurt us, instead of letting anger well up, let's try to contemplate. That person is also an ordinary human being, capable of mistakes, also influenced by ignorance and greed. When we understand that, we will see that they are no different from us, because we ourselves have sometimes unintentionally hurt others, sometimes spoken unkind words in anger. Understanding that empathy, the heart will open more easily. Another way to practice forgiveness is through meditation. When sitting still, breathing gently, we can bring the image of the person who hurt us before our mind's eye. Initially, we might feel uncomfortable, but just let the emotions pass like clouds. Then, we try to send them a blessing, a wish that they too may find peace and less suffering. When we can do that, we will feel lighter, no longer burdened as before. In the Dhammapada, there is a verse, "In this world, hatred is never appeased by hatred. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased. This is an eternal law." When we truly open our hearts to forgive, that compassionate heart is the strength that frees us from the chains of anger. Forgiveness does not make us weak. On the contrary, only those with hearts big enough can forgive. The one who holds a grudge is the weak one, because they let the past control the present. The one who knows how to forgive is the strong one, because they choose freedom instead of chains. If you are still holding on to some pain, I hope you will try to forgive just once. You don't need to say it out loud. You don't need to meet the other person directly. Just quietly tell yourself, "I let go. I choose peace." And then you will feel a lightness, like clouds dissipating, like the morning sun pouring in after the rain. Human life is inherently short. We should not waste it in suffering and resentment, because forgiveness is the gift we give ourselves to live fully in every peaceful moment. And when you cherish peace in your heart, you will find yourself able to smile more easily, love more expansively, and live more completely. Forgiveness is not only liberation for oneself, but also a way to sow seeds of happiness for those around you. In the family home, in friendships, in all relationships, when a heart knows how to forgive, there will be more opportunities for understanding and love to flourish. And that is the foundation for a peaceful life. Human life is short. Time flows rapidly, like an unceasing river. Don't let each day pass in the heaviness of resentment. Forgive so that each day is a new day, light and pure. Forgiveness is the path to freedom. And when you walk that path, you will find your heart at peace, like a gentle breeze, like clouds floating, no longer bound by the shadows of the past. Forgiveness is the key that opens the door to inner freedom. And when that door opens, happiness will be present in every breath, every step, every gentle smile. My dear friend, have you ever wondered why amidst all the hustle and bustle, all the pressures of life, some people can still maintain a peaceful demeanor, while others, even a small thing, can make them flustered, angry, or even exhausted? What creates that difference? Could it be mindfulness, a silent key that the Buddha taught over 2,000 years ago? Mindfulness may sound profound, but in reality, it is incredibly accessible. It is simply being aware in every moment. When we breathe, we know we are breathing. When we eat, we know we are eating. When we walk, we know each step we are taking on the ground. It sounds too simple, but how many of us truly live every moment so fully? The Buddha once taught that the past is gone. The future has not yet arrived. Only the present moment is truly life. Yet, people often get caught up in regrets or worries, thereby losing the precious reality right before their eyes. When we sit down to eat, our minds are busy thinking about unfinished work. When talking to our children, our minds worry about money. When walking among green trees, we are engrossed with our phones. In this way, we miss so many beautiful things in life. Mindfulness is bringing us back so we can clearly and fully see what is happening, without being carried away by the past or the future. Imagine an early morning as the sun first rises, its gentle golden light spreading over the garden. If we walk in mindfulness, we will notice every sparkling dewdrop, every clear bird song, every cool breeze gently touching our skin. That feeling is so clear, fresh, and full of life. But if our minds are worried about yesterday or tomorrow, all those wonders become invisible. We merely pass through without truly living. Mindfulness doesn't add anything to life. It helps us recognize what already exists, but we often overlook. I want to tell you a story about An Bin, an office worker, like many others. He worked for a large company, facing dozens of meetings, hundreds of emails, and countless pressures every day. Gradually, he became tired and irritable. Even a small thing would make him lose his temper. Waking up in the morning, he already felt heavy. At the office, he was stressed. And at home, he would take his anger out on his family. His life revolved around fatigue and stress. One time, due to extreme stress, he had to take leave to rest. During that time, a friend invited him to a short retreat at a temple. Initially, he wasn't very interested, but wanting a change of pace, he agreed. At the retreat, the first thing he learned wasn't lofty philosophies, but simply how to breathe. The teacher instructed him, "Sit still, take a very gentle breath, knowing you are inhaling. Exhale. Know that you are exhaling." It sounded easy, but when he tried, his mind jumped all over the place, thinking about unfinished work, then remembering the phone he left at home. But then, with the teacher's patience, he learned to return to his breath. He realized that simply by inhaling and knowing he was inhaling, exhaling, and knowing he was exhaling. In that moment, all worries and pressures seemed to dissipate. His mind became calm, and a sense of peace spread. In the following days, he practiced eating mindfully. Before, his meals were often rushed. He would eat while scrolling on his phone or quickly replying to emails. But at the retreat, everyone was instructed to eat in silence. When he held his bowl of rice, he was reminded to look closely at each grain, to feel the effort of countless farmers who had sown, harvested, and transported it. As he chewed each bite of rice, he listened to the true flavor slowly, without rushing. It was then that he deeply felt that even a simple meal could become a miracle. When the retreat ended, he brought what he had learned to apply in his daily life. Every morning before starting work, he spent a few minutes sitting still, breathing mindfully. During stressful working hours, he allowed himself to stop, take a deep breath to bring his mind back to the present. As a result, he was no longer as easily angered as before. Instead, he became calmer and clearer when solving problems. His wife and children also clearly felt the change. The family atmosphere gradually became lighter and warmer. It all started with returning to the breath and living in mindfulness. An Bin's story is also the story of many people in modern society. We often think that to have peace, we need more money, an easier job, or a better living environment. But the truth is that peace lies right in our breath, in every step, every meal. Mindfulness does not require us to abandon all work or go into deep mountains, but simply to be aware in our daily lives. The Buddha taught that living mindfully is the path to happiness. When we have mindfulness, we master our minds. Even when faced with adversity, we maintain peace. Even amidst noise, our minds have their own quiet space. Mindfulness is like a bright lamp illuminating everything so we can see clearly, without our minds being swept away in the whirlpool of ignorance. To practice mindfulness, you don't need to start with anything grand. Try it in your daily activities. When eating, put your phone down, focus on the food, and feel its flavor. When walking, pay attention to each step, listen to the rustling leaves, watch the changing sky. When talking to loved ones, truly listen instead of listening while thinking about other things. These seemingly small things are the practice of mindfulness. If you've ever felt life was too stressful, I hope you'll try to stop for a moment. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and exhale gently. In that moment, you'll realize you are still here. Your heart is still beating. Life is still present. And that is the most precious gift we often overlook. Human life is inherently short. We don't know what tomorrow will bring, but we have this moment. If we live fully in every one of those moments, we will not waste our lives in suffering. Mindfulness is the key that opens the door to peace. And when that door opens, we will see the world more gently, our hearts lighter, and life becoming infinitely precious. Try to look into the eyes of a child as they gaze at a flower. Those eyes are pure, full of presence. That is mindfulness. When we live like that child, we will see every flower, every cloud, every bird song as a miracle. And at that moment, happiness is no longer far away, but right within reach, in every breath, every step we take. Have you ever sat quietly on an afternoon, looking at what you have and wondering what true wealth really is? Many people spend their entire lives chasing money, possessions, and power. But the more they accumulate, the more they feel they lack. Like a bottomless pit that you keep pouring into, but never fills. The Buddha taught that the richest person is not the one with the most assets, but the one who knows contentment. Because only when one knows contentment can the mind be at peace, the heart serene, and life be less troubled. In the scriptures, the Buddha repeatedly mentioned the words trituk, contentment. Trituk means knowing enough, knowing when to stop, knowing how to look at what is present, and realizing how fortunate and sufficient one is compared to so many others. A person without contentment is like someone drinking seawater. The more they drink, the thirstier they become. The more they desire, the more they suffer. But a person who knows contentment, even with just a simple meal of rice and vegetables, still finds life to be a joy. Imagine the image of a dewdrop on a leaf in the early morning. It is small, fragile, yet complete. It doesn't complain about not being a great river, nor does it feel inferior for being just a tiny drop of water. It simply exists quietly in the morning sun, sparkling perfectly as it is. That is the image of contentment. Knowing what you have is enough to smile, enough to be at peace. In a small, rural village lived a farmer affectionately known by his neighbors as Uncle Ba, the vegetable grower. He lived in a simple thatched house. In front was a bed of green mustard greens, and behind the house was a lush trellis of loofah vines. Early in the morning, he would wake up, put on his old sandals, go to the garden, water each vegetable plant, pick a few worms, and then leisurely take his bundle of vegetables to the market to sell. People bought his vegetables not just because they were organic, but also because of the gentle smile always on his face. They said Uncle Ba's vegetables tasted of the sweetness of sunshine, the coolness of rain, and the peace in his smile. His life was so simple that many people saw him as poor, but he never considered himself poor. He often said, "Every day I have a hot bowl of rice, a plate of green vegetables, a roof over my head, the sound of roosters crowing every morning, the sound of children playing in the village. That's rich enough." His words sounded light as the wind, but made people ponder deeply. Meanwhile, in the same town lived Mr. Fong, a wealthy merchant renowned throughout the region. His house was as large as a mansion, his cars luxurious, and his safes full of gold and silver. But at night, he often tossed and turned, unable to sleep. He worried about thieves, about lost goods, about dishonest employees, about fluctuating markets, about unexpected competition. The more material possessions he had, the more worries accumulated. He had white hair, but rarely smiled. One day, Mr. Fong coincidentally went to the market and saw Uncle Ba selling vegetables. He bought a small bunch of vegetables, but noticed Uncle Ba smiling as brightly as the sun. He asked, "You work hard all day and only sell a few thousand dong worth of vegetables? Why do you always smile? Don't you feel sad or worried?" Uncle Ba looked at Mr. Fong and smiled, saying, "I have vegetables to eat, a house to live in, health to work, and neighbors who greet me every day. Isn't that enough? A person who doesn't know contentment, even with a house full of gold and silver, will still suffer. But a person who knows contentment finds even a simple meal of vegetables delicious." That simple answer left Mr. Fong silent for a long time. going home, he lay on his soft mattress in his large room, but felt an emptiness in his heart. He remembered Uncle Ba's smile and asked himself, "So, who is truly rich?" Contentment is not giving up everything, nor does it mean denying ambition. Contentment is knowing how to set limits on greed, knowing when to stop to enjoy the present moment. A person who knows contentment is no longer swept away by desires, no longer lets their mind chase after distant things, forgetting the happiness right before their eyes. Some say, "If I'm not ambitious, how can I develop? If I don't want more, how can I succeed?" But think carefully. What meaning does success hold if it comes at the cost of a restless soul? What happiness is complete when we constantly fear losing what we have? Knowing contentment does not mean laziness, but doing our best, yet keeping our minds unburdened, not allowing comparison or competition to control us. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha once taught that contentment is the greatest wealth in life, because a contented person, though having little, feels much, while a discontented person, though having much, feels little. Human suffering does not lie in deprivation, but in never feeling enough. Try to recall those family meals of old. Just a bowl of vegetable soup, a plate of braised fish. But everyone felt warm, found it delicious. Now, amidst a table full of delicacies, sometimes we eat in silence, lacking laughter, lacking connection. So, what is true wealth? Contentment teaches us to cherish simple things like the bird song in the morning, the cool breeze blowing through the porch, the moonlight illuminating the late night. These things cannot be bought with money, but nourish the soul. When we practice living contentedly, we will find much less competition, much less trouble. A simple and effective practice is to remind ourselves of 3 things we have each day to be grateful for. It could be health, family, a good friend, or simply a deep, peaceful breath. When the mind is grateful, greed will naturally subside. When we are grateful, we feel we have enough. And in that sufficiency, there is a quiet, lasting joy. A person who does not know contentment always compares themselves to those who are richer, more beautiful, more talented. But a person who knows contentment looks inward at themselves, appreciating what is present. Between Uncle Ba, the vegetable grower, and Mr. Fong, the merchant, who is richer? If measured by money, clearly Mr. Fong. But if measured by the peace in every sleep, the lightness in a smile, perhaps Uncle Ba is the truly rich one. Contentment does not turn us into lazy people, but helps us have the right measure for life. It teaches us that after all efforts, stop and breathe. Sit down and smile. Enjoy the simplicity in every moment. It is in that moment that we are truly rich. So let's learn to live like Uncle Ba, the vegetable grower, finding happiness in small things. Don't turn your life into an endless race, because that race never has a finish line. Rich or poor, everything will eventually vanish like clouds and wind. What remains is a peaceful mind, a gentle smile, a tranquil sleep. That is priceless wealth. Therefore, contentment opens up happiness. A person who knows a contentment is the richest, because in their heart there is no room for greed, for fear, for suffering. They are at peace amidst a changing life. They are as carefree as a dewdrop in the morning sun, complete in their own simple existence. Have you ever noticed that when you place a muddy glass of water on a table and leave it undisturbed, over time the particles settle, and the water becomes clearer? The human heart is similar. When it is full of anger and envy, our minds are clouded and restless. But if there is compassion in our hearts, it is like crystal clear, gentle water, reflecting light. Compassion is like a cool stream flowing through the soul, soothing anger, washing away worldly dust, bringing healing not only to others, but also to ourselves. In the teachings of the Buddha, loving kindness and compassion, tubi, are among the four immeasurable minds. 2. Metta means to give happiness. Biharsua, karuna, means to alleviate suffering. A person with a compassionate heart not only pities when seeing others suffer, but also actively does something to help them ease their pain. Many people think compassion is a weakness, but in fact, compassion is the greatest strength. It's like water, soft and pliable, yet it can wear through hard rocks. It needs no swords, no power, yet it can conquer human hearts. Imagine a storm raging on the sea, with fierce waves and howling winds. Everyone who sees it feels fear. But deep in the heart of the ocean, there is a calm space where waves cannot reach, a place of peace. Compassion is that calm space in the soul. Even when life is turbulent, even when others hurt us, with compassion, we can maintain that stillness so as not to be swept away by hatred. Long ago, there was a young man in the village known for his hot temper and easy irritability. His name was Dung. At home, he often yelled at his wife and children. Outside, if anyone crossed him, he was ready to argue, even get into a fight. Friends gradually avoided him, and relatives were hesitant to interact with him. In his heart, there was always a fire, which made even him exhausted. But he didn't know how to escape that temperament. One year, his village was hit by a major flood. The water rose quickly, and many families had to flee in disarray. While everyone was busy saving their belongings, Dung heard the cry for help from a neighbor's child. Without thinking, he plunged into the swift current. The waves crashed fiercely, but he still managed to keep the child above water, preventing it from sinking. After a struggle, he finally managed to bring the child to safety. He was soaking wet and exhausted. But when he saw the trembling child hug him, sobbing, and calling out, "Brother Dung," his heart suddenly softened. That night, sitting on his porch, watching the rain still falling in drops, he suddenly thought, perhaps for the first time in his life, he felt a strange joy. It wasn't the joy of winning an argument, nor the joy of proving himself superior to others, but the joy of saving a life. From that moment, he began to change. He became less hot-tempered. Every time he was about to snap at his wife and children, he remembered the face of the child in the flood, remembered the fragility of human life, and reminded himself to lower his voice. He learned to listen and empathize more. The villagers also noticed him becoming gentler. People no longer saw him as rude, but called him kind-hearted Brother Dung. That story shows us that compassion not only helps others to be saved, but also saved Dung's own soul. The fire of anger in his heart was extinguished by the stream of compassion. His quick temper made him lonely, but compassion opened him up to connection and love. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught that hatred is never appeased by hatred. It is appeased by love alone. This is an eternal law. Compassion is the key to resolving suffering, stemming from anger and selfishness. A person who holds on to hatred is like someone holding a burning coal to throw at others. But in reality, they are the one who gets burned first. A person who cultivates compassion is like holding a fragrant flower, whose scent first permeates their own hand. In everyday life, we don't need to do grand things to be called compassionate. Sometimes it's just a comforting word for someone who is sad, a genuine listening ear for someone suffering, or a helping hand extended to someone who has fallen. These things, though small, have a miraculous healing power. And by helping others, our own hearts also become lighter and happier. Compassion is also like moonlight illuminating the darkness. It is not noisy or dazzling like sunlight, but gently and persistently penetrates people's hearts. Anyone who walks under that moonlight feels light and refreshed. When we sow a little compassion into the world, we alleviate so much suffering. And conversely, when we lack compassion, even a single word can cause much harm. Many people mistakenly believe that compassion is weakness or resignation, but in reality, compassion requires immense strength. It takes strength to be patient enough not to retaliate when insulted. It takes inner strength to be gentle enough not to get angry when others make mistakes. Someone who easily gets angry is actually weak because they cannot control themselves. A compassionate person is truly strong because they master their own heart. If in your life you have ever been angry, try closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, and exhaling slowly. Think of the other person as a suffering child who doesn't know how to behave. At that moment, instead of blaming, you will more easily feel compassion. When there is compassion, anger dissipates faster. Practicing this every day, you will find your heart much more peaceful. Compassion is not just for others, but also for ourselves. How many times have we blamed ourselves, tormented ourselves for past mistakes? But if we know how to be compassionate with ourselves, we will know how to forgive, how to get up after falling, how to smile at our own shortcomings. A heart that knows compassion for itself will no longer be harsh, no longer cause itself suffering. You see, compassion is a spring of healing. It soothes inner wounds, resolves external conflicts, and nurtures a lasting peace. A compassionate person is like clear water. Whoever comes near will feel refreshed. And finally, remember that human life is inherently short. If we let our minds be filled only with anger, selfishness, and competition, aren't we wasting those short days? Only love and compassion can make every moment of our lives meaningful. A compassionate person does not live longer than others, but they live more deeply, more fully, and leave a peaceful echo in everyone's hearts. That is true wealth, an unshakable inner strength. And when sitting peacefully amidst the storms of life, we can tell ourselves, "Thanks to compassion, I have healed myself." Perhaps all of us have, at some point, felt like we were carrying a heavy backpack on our shoulders. In that backpack, it's not just clothes or tools, but everything imaginable. Sad memories, unresolved regrets, even things we wanted but couldn't have, unfulfilled ambitions. The further we go, the heavier that backpack becomes, making our shoulders slump and our steps weary. At some point, we suddenly realize that we are not exhausted by the road itself, but by stubbornly clinging to that overloaded backpack. In the teachings of the Buddha, suffering often doesn't come from external circumstances, but from clinging. Our minds are like a hand. If we keep trying to clench a burning coal, we will get burned. But if we know how to open our hand, we will escape harm. Letting go, in the Buddhist sense, is not denying or rejecting life, nor is it throwing everything away. Letting go is a conscious choice. We know what is worth keeping for happiness and what should be left behind. We let go not out of indifference, but to preserve our inner peace. Someone once asked a Zen master, "What must I do to be happy?" The Zen master smiled, handed him a glass of water filled to the brim, and then said, "Try adding another drop of water." When the man did, the water overflowed. The Zen master said, "Your mind is the same. When it is already filled with worries, hatred, and regrets, there is no room for happiness. To be happy, you must first let go of some things." This lesson is simple, yet profound, reminding us that to lighten our hearts, we must learn to put down our burdens. Imagine a mountain climber. If they only carry essential items, their steps will be light, and the mountain scenery will appear more beautiful. But if they carry all sorts of heavy gear, every step becomes tiring, and they may not even have the strength left to admire the beauty of the journey. Life is the same. If we keep carrying too much pain, the torments of the past, and unrealistic expectations for the future, we will not have the energy left to enjoy the present. There is a story about Ms. Mai, a middle-aged woman living in a small town. She had gone through a broken marriage. After the divorce, she kept all her ex-husband's mementos, photos, letters, even an old backpack he used for work. She put everything into that backpack and carried it with her wherever she went. Outsiders found it strange, but she felt it was a way to preserve a part of her memories. However, she felt increasingly tired day by day. The backpack was not only heavy on her shoulders, but also in her heart. Every time she opened it, sad memories flooded back, making her cry and tormenting her. For years, she lived in pain, unable to open up to anyone else. One day, she happened to attend a talk on meditation and Buddhism. The teacher there said, "Letting go is not giving up. Letting go is choosing to keep what is truly necessary for happiness and putting down what only hurts you. If you keep carrying too heavy a backpack, you won't be able to go far." Those words awakened her. When she returned home, she took out paper and pen and wrote down all the things that weighed heavily on her heart. Each line was a wound. Then she looked at the backpack, and little by little, she emptied it. She left behind the things that were truly unnecessary. Some mementos she chose to keep in a cabinet, no longer carrying them daily. Some papers and letters she burned, sending them away with the wind to the past. As the backpack lightened, she also felt lighter. After many years, she could finally smile as she walked out the door, no longer carrying a burden on her back. Ms. May's story shows us that sometimes suffering does not come from events themselves, but from our clinging to them. A person might suffer once from an incident, but if they nurture that memory every day, they will suffer 1,000 more times. Letting go does not mean denying the past. but accepting that it has passed and choosing to move forward with a new mindset. In the scriptures, the Buddha taught that the wise know how to let go, knowing that everything is impermanent. Everything comes and goes, like a flowing river. No one can step into the same river twice. If we regret the water that has flowed by, we will not see the new water that is coming. Letting go is to clearly see life continuing in every moment. So, how do we practice letting go in daily life? You can start with something very simple. Every day, write down one thing that causes you suffering. It could be a sad memory, a person who hurt you, or an unfulfilled desire. Write it down, not to remember it, but to look directly at it. When you finish writing, read it again and ask yourself, is this still worth carrying? If the answer is no, try to put it down. You might not let go of everything in one day, but little by little, you will feel lighter. You can also practice letting go through your breath. Whenever you feel stressed, sit down, close your eyes, breathe in, recognizing the suffering in your heart. Breathe out, smile, and let it go. Repeat many times, and you will find your mind calmer. The breath is like a breeze, sweeping away dark clouds in your heart, leaving behind a clear sky. There are some things we cannot let go of immediately because they are too deeply rooted. But remember, letting go is a process, like autumn leaves. Not all yellow leaves fall in one day, but one by one they drift down with the wind until the branches are light. The human heart is the same. Be patient with yourself. Finally, the most important thing to remember is that letting go is not abandoning, but retaining what is truly precious. We don't need to carry everything in life. We only need to keep what warms our hearts, nurtures love, and brings peace. When we know how to let go, we make room for happiness to arrive. My dear, life is so short. If we cling to sadness, anger, and things that no longer belong to us, we won't have much time left to enjoy peace. Gently put them down, like a traveler leaving heavy luggage before entering a house. Only then can we truly smile and step into life with a free spirit, like clouds drifting high in the sky. Have you ever seen an ancient tree standing majestically in a field, casting a vast shadow? But when you dig down to its roots, you find them rotten, gnawed by insects. On the surface, the tree still stands, still green, but with just one storm, the trunk collapses beyond rescue. Humans are the same. If our hearts allow poisonous roots to burrow deep, then no matter how splendid, wealthy, or successful our outward appearance, at some point, life's storm will sweep it all away, leaving devastation in the soul. In Buddhist teachings, the three things known as these poisonous roots are greed, tham, hatred, san, and delusion, sai. These three mental poisons are the cause of our endless cycle of suffering, living without ever truly finding peace. Greed is the desire to possess, to accumulate, to cling to things beyond our true needs. Hatred is the fire of anger, the irritation, envy, and discomfort when our wishes are not met. Delusion is mental obscuration, ignorance, failing to see the true nature of life, constantly chasing illusions without knowing the truth. The Buddha taught that these three poisons are the root causes of all suffering. Greed makes people never feel enough. Hatred makes people burn both themselves and others. And delusion makes people lost, falling into endless darkness. Understanding this is the first step to healing our lives. One can imagine greed, hatred, and delusion as 3 heavy stones we put into a backpack on our backs. Each step becomes heavier. Each day passes in weariness. Yet, many people refuse to put down that backpack. Instead, they add more stones, thinking that carrying a lot means being rich, being famous, until their shoulders are broken and their hearts are exhausted. Only then do they realize their mistake. In ancient historical texts, there's a story about a king named Tri. He was an intelligent and strategic man who helped his country prosper and his people live in abundance. One day, a priceless jewel was found and presented to the king. The jewel sparkled like moonlight, praised by people as a national treasure. From the day he acquired the jewel, King Tri became increasingly greedy and fearful of losing it. He suspected even his officials, guarded against his own siblings, and no longer trusted even his virtuous wife. The more precious the jewel, the more restless the king's heart became. At night, he lost sleep, often holding the jewel close, believing that it ensured his safety. But the tighter he held on, the more solitary his life became, distant from people and distant from joy. By the end of his life, King Tri still clung to that jewel, but there was no one left around him who truly loved him. He died in loneliness, leaving a lesson. Greed does not make us rich, but only impoverishes us of love and peace. King Tri's story is clear proof that greed, hatred, and delusion, though invisible, are more destructive than any weapon. They not only destroy a person's soul, but can also sow unhappiness for an entire community, an entire society. In everyday life, we can also easily recognize the images of greed, hatred, and delusion. A child wants another toy that their friend has. An adult wants another house, another car, things beyond essential needs. When we don't achieve them, we get angry, we complain, we become envious. And when we are caught in that spiral, we no longer see what truly matters, what truly brings us lasting happiness. Greed makes us weary, for the more greedy we are, the emptier our hearts become. Hatred makes us suffer, for when the fire of anger flares up, we ourselves are the first to be burned. Delusion makes us blind, for we chase after illusions and ignore the truth that human life is short and impermanent. If we keep these 3 poisons in our hearts, even if we travel the entire world, we will not find peace. The Buddha repeatedly explained how to deal with the 3 poison. To eliminate greed, practice generosity and contentment. To eliminate hatred, cultivate compassion, forgiveness, and patience. To eliminate delusion, cultivate wisdom, contemplate impermanence, and calmly look deeply into the nature of life. These practices are not lofty, but are present in daily life. When we know how to smile and share a meal with the poor, when we choose silence instead of arguing, when we sit still and take a deep breath to reflect on our minds, that is when we are gradually uprooting greed, hatred, and delusion from our hearts. There is a small story the spiritual Buddhist channel once heard from an old monk. He said that a person came to the temple complaining that he was often hot-tempered and couldn't control himself, often making his loved ones suffer. The monk just quietly handed him a glass of water and a pinch of salt. The monk told him to put the salt in the glass and drink it. The water was salty and difficult to swallow. The monk then told him to dissolve the same amount of salt in the temple pond and drink a mouthful of the pond water. The water was cool and easy to drink. The monk smiled and said, "It's the same salt, but if your mind is like a glass of water, a little salt makes it bitter. If your mind is as vast as a pond, the salt is nothing. Anger is the same. If your mind is narrow and selfish, even a small disagreement can become a raging fire. But if your mind is broad and knows how to be forgiving, then adversity cannot disturb the peace within you." That story makes us realize that uprooting anger does not mean not encountering disagreeable things, but rather keeping the mind open so as not to be submerged by the salty waters of life. On the path of practice, what is important is not to immediately force oneself to be free of greed, hatred, and delusion, but to recognize them when they arise. When you see yourself being greedy, smile, knowing that your mind is greedy. When you see yourself being angry, breathe deeply, knowing that your mind is hot. When you see yourself being deluded, sit still, knowing that your mind is clouded. Recognition is light, and when there is light, darkness naturally dissipates. Day by day, step by step, as we practice letting go and transforming, the roots of suffering will also gradually wither. If one day you feel heavy and restless in your heart, try sitting down, taking a deep breath, and asking yourself, what am I greedy for today? What am I angry about today? What am I deluded by today? When you see it, you will realize that the cause of suffering does not come from outside, but from the 3 poisons within your mind. And when you see it clearly, you will know what you need to do to feel lighter. Human life is inherently short, like morning dew under the sun, like a passing cloud in the sky. If we let our entire lives be immersed in greed, anger, and delusion, it's no different from cutting our own hearts with a knife. Only when we know how to uproot these 3 poisons can we truly live in peace, happiness, and tranquility. So remember that greed, anger, and delusion are not unchangeable destinies, but merely habits. Recognition, practice, and letting go, that is the path for us not to waste our human life in suffering. Have you ever sat by a clear lake in the early morning, watching the perfectly still surface like a mirror, and realizing that only in that stillness do the clouds and sky reflect clearly? When the wind blows and waves ripple, the clouds and sky become blurred. The human mind is also like the surface of a lake. Only when it is still can we clearly see ourselves. Stillness is not emptiness, and certainly not weakness, but rather a silent strength that protects the soul. The Buddha once taught that one who knows when to be silent is one who cultivates compassion and wisdom. Silence is not to escape, but to keep the mind from being swept away by the storms of life. In life, we often mistakenly believe that talking a lot, arguing a lot, and winning with words is strength. But that strength only satisfies the ego temporarily, while the soul becomes more weary. Words can be like arrows. Once released, they cannot be taken back. If we use words to win, we only sow more seeds of hatred and suffering. Conversely, silence at the right time is like a door closing against a storm, keeping the lamp within the heart from being extinguished. That is the wisdom of stillness. Imagine an old forest. By day, countless animals' owls call out, leaves rustle, wind whistles through the branches. But when night falls, the forest is enveloped in silence. In that silence, every sound of insects, every falling dewdrop, every breath of the earth and sky becomes clear. Humans are the same. When we know how to quiet our own minds, we can hear the deep voice from our hearts. In stillness, we clearly see fear, anger, joy, and even our most genuine dreams. If we let the noise of arguments and competition overwhelm us, we will never have the opportunity to truly meet ourselves. There is an anecdote about Zen Master An. One day, a man from afar came to the temple. This man was known for his argumentative nature. He traveled everywhere, challenging monks, hoping to humiliate them and prove his cleverness. When he met Zen Master An, he mocked, ridiculed, and even severely insulted him. Those around him grew angry, but Zen Master An only smiled quietly. He did not respond or react. The other man became more and more furious, his words growing sharper. But gradually, he realized that the silence was not fear, but a rock-like steadfastness. The more he spoke, the more tired he became. And eventually, he was the one who fell silent. Zen Master. An still smiled gently, his eyes peaceful, as if never disturbed. The other man bowed his head in shame and left. From then on, he no longer traveled around to argue. He had learned a lesson that sometimes silence is more powerful than 1,000 arguments. That story shows us that silence is not weakness at all. Silence is when we know how to keep our minds from being swept away by the fire of anger, from letting the ego take control. A word can ignite a raging inferno in another person's heart. But silence at the right moment can extinguish that fire like an unexpected downpour. Therefore, silence is an art of compassion and wisdom. In everyday life, perhaps all of us have experienced moments where we should have been silent, but spoke out, only to regret it. A mother might, in a fit of anger, speak harshly to her child, causing the child sorrow. A husband might, out of pride, raise his voice at his wife, adding tension to the family. At such times, if we knew to stop, to be silent, the anger would not have turned into a wound, but often the ego urges us to speak, to win. And the result is that both are hurt. Just a little silence. We could have preserved peace for ourselves and others. In Buddhism, there is the concept of right speech, speaking truthfully, gently, and beneficially. But sometimes not speaking is also right speech, because if some words, when spoken, do no good, only increase distress, then silence is the wise choice. A Zen master once said, "Before speaking, ask yourself, is this true? Is it beneficial? Is it timely? If not, be silent." That is how we use silence to cultivate peace. Practicing silence does not mean living in isolation, avoiding everyone. On the contrary, it is a full presence. When we are silent, we can listen more deeply, listen to our own breath, Listen to the pain of loved ones. Listen to the call of life. Often, those around us don't need advice. They just need us to listen with our hearts. In compassionate silence, that very silence has the power to heal. Try to imagine yourself sitting in a familiar room, all noise turned off. No phone, no TV, no words. Just the sound of your breath, your heartbeat. At that moment, you realize how long you have neglected yourself. Silence becomes a mirror reflecting every wave in your mind. From there, you learn to breathe slowly, smile, and dwell in the present moment. That is the precious gift that silence bestows. A simple practice method is to spend a few minutes each day sitting quietly, not speaking, not doing anything, just listening to your breath. Breathe in, knowing you are breathing in. Breathe out, knowing you are breathing out. If thoughts arise, smile, acknowledge them, and let them float away like clouds across the sky. Just a few minutes like this, and you will feel your mind calm down, your heart lighter. That is the beginning of the power of silence. Human life is inherently short. We have wasted too much time on words of superiority, on unnecessary arguments. If we know how to slow down, to keep silent when needed, we will save so much energy to devote to love, to understanding, to the joy of living. A word can cause breakage, but silence can preserve a relationship whole. That is a silent yet great power. Therefore, silence is not an escape. Silence is a courageous choice, an affirmation that we do not let anger control us. We do not let the ego lead us. Silence is the strength of one who knows how to live in awareness. When we are silent, we not only protect our own minds, but also sow seeds of peace in others. In silence, we clearly hear our own hearts and also hear the sighs of the world. That is the beginning of compassion, of wisdom, and of peace. Imagine an early morning when mist still shrouds the young leaves, when the sun has not yet risen high, and all things seem to be still half asleep. In that moment, you feel time stop. No past, no future, just the rhythm of your breath and the beat of your own heart. But how many of us truly live so fully? So many still struggle with past memories or project their minds towards a day that hasn't arrived, thereby missing the precious present opening before their eyes. The Buddha once taught that the past is gone. The future has not yet arrived. Only the present moment is truly precious. Yet most of us live like drivers who only focus on the rearview mirror, regretting and remorseful, forgetting the open road ahead. In Buddhist teachings, the present is the gateway to peace. Whoever knows how to stop and live in the present holds the greatest treasure of their life. For the past, whether beautiful or sad, has flowed like water and cannot be grasped. The future, whether hoped for or feared, is just a shadow that has not yet materialized and can change at any moment. Only the present, this very moment, is real, where we can breathe, we can smile, we can sow good seeds for our minds. The Buddha called this living in mindfulness. It means returning to the breath, to each step, to be fully aware of what is happening. If we look at life with a wandering mind, The past will become a chain, the future a burden. But if we can return to the present, then every raindrop, every ray of sunshine, every smile transforms into a miracle. Imagine someone walking on a tree-lined path. If their mind is constantly thinking about the worry of food and clothing or past sorrows, they won't see the flowers blooming by the road, won't hear the birds calling, won't feel the cool breeze passing by. But if they stop, take a deep breath, and relax their shoulders, that path suddenly becomes a magical. The treasure of human life is not found far away, but in the ability to live fully in the present moment. An Kai's story will perhaps help us understand more clearly. He was a gentle person, but carried in his heart the sadness of a past relationship. That love had ended many years ago, yet in his mind, it remained intact like an unhealed wound. Every day he remembered it, compared the present to the past, and blamed fate for stealing his happiness. His life became heavy because of this. He had a small family and a stable job, but his heart was never at peace. His wife and children always felt distant from him, as if he lived in another world. Until one day, he had the opportunity to attend a short meditation retreat. There, the teachers instructed him to simply sit down, close his eyes, and breathe. It sounded simple, but when he started practicing, he realized his mind was like a muddy river full of floating images from the past. He wanted to drive them away, but the more he tried, the clearer they appeared. The teacher told him not to try to push them away, just to return to his breath, just to smile at each breath entering and leaving his chest. At first, he found it meaningless, but gradually he began to feel a gentle calm. The sad memories were still there, but they no longer controlled his mind. From those meditation sessions, he learned to walk more slowly. When taking his children to school, he no longer rushed in the car, but brought his mind to each revolution of the wheels, each of his children's laughs. When eating, he no longer ate while thinking about work, but looked closely at his bowl of rice, picked up each piece of food, feeling the simple but warm flavor. He realized that his wife and children were always by his side, and life still held many precious things. It was just that, before, he let his mind wander and couldn't see them. From a person bound by the past, he learned to return to living in the present, and the sadness gradually dissipated. Through that story, we understand that happiness is not found in having a lot of money, status, or fame, but in knowing how to cherish every living moment. A person who knows how to cherish the present will see a child's smile as a gift. They will see a simple meal as happiness. They will see the first rain of the season as a blessing. Living like that, human life, though short, is not wasted in suffering. To live in the present, we can start with very simple practices. Every morning when you wake up, stop for a few seconds to smile and take a deep breath. Recognize that you are still present in this life. When walking, pay attention to each step. Feel the ground beneath your feet. When drinking a sip of water, feel the cool water running down your throat. All these small things help us return, not letting our minds wander in the past or future. Many people think that living in the present means abandoning all responsibilities, but that is not the case. Living in the present means fully engaging in what is happening. When working, work with full dedication. When resting, rest completely. When with loved ones, give them your full presence. That is how we live peacefully, while also cultivating for the future, because the future is shaped by what we sow in the present. Life is short, and suffering is already abundant. So why do we squander our only treasure, the present? The past is merely a shadow, the future only a dream. The present is the soil where we sow seeds of peace. Let each breath become a bridge, bringing us back to ourselves. Let each smile become a sign of awakening. And let each day, no matter how ordinary, become a priceless gift. Thus, the present is the only treasure of human life. If we know how to live fully with it, we will no longer fear, no longer regret, no longer be confused. We will realize that every moment contains peace, and that peace is the most precious thing that no gold or silver can compare to. One autumn morning, as the yellow leaves gently fell to the ground, I suddenly remembered the words of a Zen master. Every falling leaf is a reminder that we are still present in this life, to breathe, to see, to feel. That seemingly simple statement carried an immense healing power. It reminded us of something we often forget due to busyness and worries: gratitude. Gratitude is like a cool, clear stream that can wash away anxieties and water our parched souls. In Buddhist teachings, gratitude is not just an action or a word, but an energy. It is an energy that helps people overcome suffering, transform losses into growth, and turn wounds into inner strength. The Buddha taught that life is inherently impermanent. Happiness and suffering both come and go. Nothing lasts forever. If we keep looking at what is lost, we will feel an emptiness in our hearts. But if we turn back to recognize what is still present in every moment, we will feel our hearts filled with gratitude. Gratitude helps us change our perspective on what is happening. A failure is no longer an end, but a lesson. A loss is no longer a deep pit of despair, but fertile ground for growth. A pain is no longer just torment, but becomes an opportunity for us to learn empathy and deeper love. Perhaps you have seen the sun setting on the horizon. As the last golden light gradually disappears behind the mountain range, the sky is dyed a dark purple. Many will feel regret that a day has passed, feel a sense of loss as time flies by. But there are also those who, instead of regretting, stand silently watching and silently giving thanks because they had the opportunity to admire that majestic beauty. So, for the same event, but with a grateful heart, every experience becomes a gift. This is the secret of gratitude. It does not change the external reality, but changes the way we perceive it, thereby making our inner world more peaceful. The story of Ms. Lien is a clear proof. She is a woman over 30 who has worked for a garment company for over 10 years. Although the job was not highly prestigious, it was stable enough for her to raise her young child and support her elderly parents. Then one day, the company unexpectedly announced staff reductions. She was on the list of those to be laid off. The news came like a bolt from the blue. In the first few days, she almost fell into despair. Losing her job meant losing income, which meant a stacking burden on her family. She often suffered from insomnia, her mind filled with anxiety. In those dark moments, she only saw darkness ahead. But then, a close friend advised her to try writing a gratitude journal. At first, she felt it was meaningless. In that situation, what was there to be grateful for? Job loss? Debt? A bleak future? What was there to be grateful for? She wondered. But trusting her friend, she started to try. Every night before going to bed, she tried to write down 3 things she felt grateful for that day. At first, the page was almost blank. But gradually, she began to realize she still had her health to care for her child, still had a roof over her head, and still had her parents and friends by her side. Some days she simply wrote, "Today my daughter hugged me so tightly when I took her to school. I am grateful for that moment." Another day she wrote, "Today I cooked a simple meal, but the whole family gathered around. Laughter echoed, and I felt warmth in my heart." After only a few weeks, her mood changed significantly. The anxiety was no longer as overwhelming as before. She began to see that her life was not entirely gloomy as she had once thought. And then, with a more optimistic mindset, she bravely applied for a new job. After a while, she found a job at another company. Although the salary was not higher, the work environment was more comfortable and suitable. Looking back, she realized that if it hadn't been for the job loss, she might never have had the opportunity to change. Thanks to gratitude, she navigated the storm in her heart and found peace. Ms. Lyon's story is not a rare one. In everyone's life, we all experience losses to varying degrees. Some lose jobs, some lose loved ones, some lose their health. But if we direct our hearts towards gratitude, we will see that every loss carries a lesson, some kind of opening for the soul. Gratitude does not deny suffering, but it helps us see the value hidden behind that suffering. When the Buddha taught the 4 Noble Truths, he did not hide the truth that life is suffering. But alongside that, he pointed out the path to overcome suffering. Gratitude is one of the important steps on that path because it softens the hardened heart, opening up the ability to accept and transform. If you pay attention, you will see that nature also always teaches us a lesson about gratitude. A seed can only sprout when it is embraced by the earth, nourished by water, sunlight, and air. Only when all these elements come together can the seed grow into a green plant. We humans are the same. No one can exist independently. From the meal we eat, the clothes we wear, to the path we walk, all are created by countless hands, countless silent sacrifices. Just by looking a little deeper, we will find countless things around us to be grateful for. So how can we practice gratitude in daily life? A simple and effective way is to keep a gratitude journal. Every night before going to bed, take a few minutes to write down 3 things you are grateful for that day. It could be a smile, a meal, a kind inquiry, or simply the moment you can breathe fresh air. Gradually, this habit will change your mind. Instead of only looking at what is lacking, you will learn to look at what you have. Then life will become more complete, more peaceful. A master once said, "A grateful heart is a heart where suffering no longer finds a long-term abode." Because when we are grateful, we are open to receiving everything, including adversities, instead of resisting and blaming. We learn to accept and transform them into nourishment for ourselves. That is transformation. Suffering does not disappear, but it is embraced and transformed into growth, into compassion, into wisdom. When you sit quietly, close your eyes, take a deep breath and think of 3 things you are grateful for today. You will feel your mind lighten considerably. You will realize that despite difficulties, life still holds green shoots of hope. And that very sense of gratitude will be a light illuminating your path, helping you navigate storms more steadily. Therefore, cultivate the habit of living in gratitude. Be grateful to your parents for your physical body. Be grateful to your teachers for imparting knowledge. Be grateful to your friends for sharing joys and sorrows with you. Be grateful even to those who have hurt you, for through them you learned the lesson of forgiveness. Be grateful for every raindrop, every breeze, every morning, and every sunset. For all are priceless gifts. When living in gratitude, we no longer see life as solely filled with suffering, but see that within suffering, seeds of peace are always hidden. A grateful heart is a peaceful heart, and when the heart is at peace, all suffering will gradually vanish like morning dew under the sun. Some mornings, as the sun just wakes up and dew still clings to the young leaves, we catch a glimpse of a clear dewdrop sparkling under the gentle sunlight. That dewdrop is incredibly fragile. Just a passing breeze can make it vanish. But it is precisely that fragility that makes it so extraordinarily beautiful. It lives fully for its short moment, without regretting the past or dreaming of the future. It is simply present here in this moment, shining its brightest. This image is like a profound reminder that human life is inherently as short as a morning dewdrop, and how we live each moment fully is what brings true meaning. In Buddhist teachings, awareness, tin thuk, is one of the important foundations for walking the path of peace. Awareness means returning to the present, being conscious of what is happening within your own body and mind, and around you. The Buddha once taught, "Do not pursue the past. Do not lose yourself in the future. The past is no more. The future has not yet come." Looking deeply at life as it is in the very here and now, the practitioner dwells in stability and freedom. A person who knows how to live in awareness will not indulge in desires, nor will they tire themselves out competing to win or lose. Instead, they will live fully in every breath, every step, every moment of daily life. Awareness helps us escape the ignorant whirlpool of habit and worry to clearly see life unfolding before our eyes. If we pay attention, we will realize that often we are living, but not truly living. The meal in front of us, we eat while thinking about unfinished work. The words of a loved one echo, we hear, but don't truly listen, because our minds have drifted to distant matters. Days pass quickly. We think we are living. But in reality, we are just chasing thoughts and worries, forgetting that life is only present in the present moment. Awareness is returning to live deeply in every one of those moments. One morning, as the first rays of sun shone, Venerable Thich Phap Min and his students took a walking meditation in a small garden. The wind blew gently, birds sang in the foliage, the air was fresh and pure. After walking a short distance, the teacher stopped and pointed to a small leaf where a dewdrop was sparkling. The teacher smiled gently and said, "Look at that dewdrop, my children. It is fragile. In just a few minutes, when the sun rises higher, it will vanish. But right now, it shines brightly, reflecting the entire sky within it. Though short-lived, That dewdrop lives fully for this very moment. We humans are the same. Life is not long, so if we don't know how to live each day fully, we will miss the beauty of life. Hearing the teacher's words, a student silently shed tears. He realized that for so long he had lived in haste, in competition, in worry, forgetting that true life only lies in the present moment. From that day on, he learned to walk more slowly. He learned to listen to the birds. He learned to smile when he saw flowers bloom. He learned to cherish every cool drop of water on his lips. The story of the morning dewdrop that Venerable Phap Min shared is not just a lesson for his students, but for all of us. Humans are often caught in two currents. One is regretting the past, and the other is worrying about the future. We regret not doing this, or keeping that person in the past, leading to endless remorse. We worry about what tomorrow will bring, how our work will be, if our health will be stable, if our children will grow up well. Between these two currents, the present becomes small and easily overlooked. But the truth is, only the present is true life. When we eat, we truly taste the food. When we breathe, we are aware of the air flowing in and out. When we laugh, we are fully in that joy. That is awareness. An awakened person will not indulge in sensual pleasures, nor will they rush into competition and winning or losing. For that person understands that everything is impermanent: fame, wealth, power. At some point, they too will vanish like a morning dewdrop under the sun. An awakened person does not waste their life on meaningless things, but dedicates time to what brings true value: a loving word, an act of forgiveness, a warm embrace, a moment of sitting still and listening to the heart. Practicing awareness is not some lofty, distant thing. It starts with very small actions. Waking up in the morning, instead of rushing to grab your phone, you can sit quietly for a few minutes, breathe deeply, and smile. Be grateful that you are still alive, still have a new day to continue. When eating, we can put our whole mind into each bite of rice, feeling the taste, thinking of the effort of so many people who contributed to bringing that meal to us. When walking, we can slow down, feel our feet touching the ground, listen to the wind, admire the green trees. Just like that, we are living mindfully. The Buddha taught that mind is the root of all actions. When the mind is present in the present moment, we are no longer controlled by anger, greed, or delusion. An awakened heart will know how to love more, how to forgive more easily. It will appreciate what it has instead of chasing after what is beyond its reach. Living mindfully is also a way for us to truly live fully with those we love, because some people are with us today, but may be gone tomorrow. If we are not mindful, we will unintentionally lose the opportunity to love them in the present. There was an old woman who frequently visited the temple to worship the Buddha. She was over 70, but always had a gentle smile on her lips. When someone asked, "Grandma, what's your secret to always being so cheerful?" the old woman gently replied, "I don't have much. I just try to live each day as if it were my last. I wake up, grateful that I am still breathing. I eat, grateful that I still have teeth to chew. I walk, grateful that my legs are still strong. I smile at everyone I meet, because who knows if I'll see them tomorrow. I think living like that is awareness. Hearing the old woman speak, many people suddenly felt lighter. It turned out that awareness was not something complicated, but knowing how to return to the ordinary, yet complete things. Living mindfully helps us cherish time. Human life, however long, is only a few decades. If we are not mindful, we will unintentionally let time pass in waste. But if we are mindful, we will see that every day is precious. Every hour is worth cherishing. We no longer live superficially, but live more deeply, love more, forgive more easily, and are more at peace. Therefore, let's practice living mindfully from today. When you drink a glass of water, truly feel its coolness. When you look at the sky, let your mind be as open as the flying clouds. When you hear a loving word, let your heart receive it fully. Every moment will become complete, and that very completeness will help you stop searching for happiness far away. A morning dewdrop, though short-lived, shines its brightest in the moment of its existence. Human life is also very short. But if we know how to live mindfully, we will turn each day into a song, each moment into a gift. And then suffering will no longer be a burden, but become the foundation for us to appreciate life. Moreover, a person who knows how to live mindfully is a person who knows how to love, how to forgive, how to cherish each day. And only then do we truly live, not just exist. One afternoon, as the last rays of sunlight gradually withdrew behind the mountain range, the sky seemed to don a contemplative cloak. People often say that sunset is a reminder that nothing lasts forever. Even a long, brilliant day must come to an end to make way for the night. Human life is the same, like a drifting cloud, sometimes brilliantly shining, sometimes gradually fading, eventually dissolving into the void. In that impermanence, how many truly stop to look deeply within themselves, to realize that if this short life is continually immersed in suffering, resentment, and clinging, then we are only squandering the most precious opportunity, the opportunity to live peacefully, right in every breath. The Buddha taught that human life is finite. Time flies like a horse's shadow passing a window, waiting for no one. With each passing day, we grow one day older, moving closer to the final moment. Yet, many people keep striving for dominance, piling up worries, only to look back and see how many years have fallen into oblivion. Understanding the principle of impermanence is not meant to instill fear, but to teach us to cherish every moment we still have in this world. When we know how fragile time is, we learn to let go of petty sufferings, forgive mistakes, open our hearts to compassion, and live fully in the present. There was an elderly mother who once recounted her life story. She had 3 children. When she was young, busy earning a living, she often disciplined and scolded her children for small things. She thought that the stricter she was, the better her children would become. However, as years passed, her children grew up and moved away, each going their separate ways. By the time she reached old age, sitting alone in her quiet house, she realized how many loving words she had never spoken, how many hugs she had not given her children. She cried in silence and deeply felt the Buddha's teaching on impermanence. She understood that the past anger and blame no longer held any meaning, only leaving regret in her heart. From then on, she practiced forgiving herself. She tried calling her children with a warmer voice, less fault-finding, and with an open heart. Thanks to this, her final days were filled with peace, no longer tormented by the past. That story reminds us that each of us will grow old and will experience the final afternoons of our lives. If we don't learn to let go and forgive in time, we will carry suffering into the realm of impermanence. But if we know how to stop, look at reality, and smile at simple things, then even in this very moment, we can find liberation. The Buddha once taught that the contented person is the richest, and the one who knows how to let go is the happiest. Contentment means knowing enough. It's not giving up all dreams, but living with a grateful heart, not demanding too much, not chasing endless desires. A simple bowl of rice, a peaceful home, a family that loves each other. These are priceless treasures. Some people spend their entire lives chasing fame and fortune, accumulating much, but ultimately end up with illness, loneliness, and anxiety. Others, though not well off, smile every day, their hearts serene. They are the truly rich ones. Contentment is a seed of peace. If we know how to plant it, life, though short, will be full of meaning. Try to imagine if tomorrow were the last day of our lives, what would we do? Perhaps we would stop being angry at anyone, stop arguing over trifles, stop frantically searching for ephemeral things. We would want to hold our loved ones' hands, say words of love, forgive each other, and sit quietly to feel a complete breath. So why wait until the last day to live like that? Why not start today, in every present moment, so that life is no longer wasted? A Zen master once recounted that a person came to the temple complaining, "I have lived half my life, and it has been nothing but suffering. I see no joy in life." The Zen master smiled, offered him a glass of clear water, and said, "Drink it, and tell me how it tastes." The man drank and replied, "Yes, the water is cool and sweet." The Zen master said, "Life is like this glass of water. If your mind is angry, you will find the water bland. If your mind is peaceful, you will taste the sweetness. Life itself is not suffering. Suffering only arises from your own perception." Those words were a great lesson. Life is short. Happiness or sorrow does not lie in circumstances, but in how our minds confront them. When we know how to stop, take a deep breath, listen to the birds sing, watch flowers bloom on the porch, or simply feel the beat of our own heart, we will realize that life is not all worries. It also has the colors and scents of plants, the smiles of loved ones, the warm light of a sunrise. Mindfulness teaches us to bring our minds back to the present, to clearly see that happiness is always around us. It's just that we've missed too much by constantly chasing illusions. Forgiveness is also a great gift that the Buddha taught us to give ourselves. When we cling to hatred, we imprison ourselves in darkness. Forgiveness is not forgetting mistakes, but freeing our hearts so they are no longer heavy, no longer suffering. Forgiving others is also forgiving ourselves. Life is short. Holding on to resentment only makes our remaining days heavier. Let your mind be light, your heart at ease, so that every step is filled with peace. Finally, compassion is the guiding light for all actions. When we know how to love unconditionally, how to hold the suffering of others in our hearts, we no longer feel lonely. A smile given, a warm handshake, a sincere inquiry, seemingly small, but possessing immense healing power. Life is short, but if we live with a compassionate heart, every passing day becomes a priceless gift. My dear friend, the ultimate message the Buddha left behind is a reminder. Human life is like a dewdrop on a blade of grass, like a flash of lightning in the dark. It appears momentarily and then vanishes. Do not waste it in suffering. Do not let greed, hatred, and delusion bind your steps. Live with mindfulness, with contentment, with letting go, with forgiveness, and with compassion. Then you will see that life is no longer a burden, but a beautiful journey, where every moment contains peace. If you are listening to these words, please close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath and exhale gently. Feel that in this very moment, you are alive, still breathing, still able to love. That is already a miracle. May you and all sentient beings always find peace in every breath, find light in every remaining day, so that when you look back, you can smile and say that you have not wasted this short life, this short